Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Jenny Halpin, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 2 Robert Cooper. This evening, we are pleased to welcome the Defence Widows Group to the Last Post ceremony. The group is a subgroup of the ACT chapter of the Defence Force Welfare Association. It was established in 1981 and its focus is on providing mutual support and friendship through an established network of defence widows residing in the ACT. It is an inclusive group, the only criterion for membership being that a partner donned a military uniform in the service of their country. We are honoured to acknowledge His Excellency Mr. Paolo Crudel, the Ambassador of Italy to Australia, and the accompanying delegation who are joining us this evening to mark Italian National Unity and Armed Forces Day. Italian National Unity and Armed Forces Day commemorates the victory of Italy in the First World War and the completion of national unity. We are also honoured to acknowledge Mr. Marko Mikkelsen, Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Riigikogu Parliament of Estonia, accompanied by His Excellency Mr. Jan Reinhold, the Ambassador of Estonia to Australia. Major General Akash Johar, Director General International Cooperation Army India, accompanied by Major General Chris Smith, Deputy Chief of Army, and Regimental Sergeant Major of the Army, Warrant Officer Kilm Felmingham. We warmly welcome the delegation of the Regimental Sergeant Major's course and 13 and 14 Platoon of 1st Recruit Training Battalion, Kapuka. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial, students on behalf of Irimple Primary School from Victoria, and students on behalf of Stridham Home School. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catafalque party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. Now, if you are able, could I please invite you to stand and join in singing the national anthem. Students and those who require a seat, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Claude Roy Ebeling. Claude Ebeling, known as Roy, was born in 1893, the eldest son of Klaus and Francis Ebeling. Claude's father was a well-known engineer, the founder and managing director of C. Ebeling and Sons, engineers and iron founders in Yarraville. His mother was an active member of the local community and volunteered from the Footscray's Ladies Benevolent Society. When Roy was 6 years old, his mother died from complications in childbirth, and at some point, his father remarried. Roy grew up in Yarraville in a house attached to his father's factory and was educated at the local state school. He went on to work as an engineer with his father. He was described as a highly respected and a most popular young man at Yarraville, having made a host of friends who spoke of him in the highest terms of praise. Roy Ebeling enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in July 1915. The same year, he married Muriel Gibson. His expert knowledge of propelling machinery saw him posted as a mechanic to the newly formed No. 1 Squadron of the Australian Flying Corps. He left Australia and his new wife with the squadron in March 1916 aboard the troopship Orsova, having recently been promoted to corporal. No. 1 Squadron of the Australian Flying Corps began active operations in June 1916 against the Ottoman Empire and Senussi Arabs in Egypt and Palestine. Within 2 months, Ebeling fell ill with enteric fever and would struggle to regain his health. Early the following year, he was sent to England, where he was transferred to the 68th Australian Squadron of the Royal Flying Corps. In England, Ebeling worked as a sergeant instructor in the Royal Flying Corps. His home newspapers proudly reported that his duties were to travel from camp to camp all over Britain, making use, in the interests of the Army, of the engineering knowledge he had gained at Yarraville. Known as Ebu, he made friends in the local population, including a woman named Irie Brown, who described herself as his chief girl pal. Toward the end of 1917, Roy Ebeling undertook training to become a pilot. In November, he graduated as a flying officer and was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Australian Imperial Force. He remained in England for several months, including nearly 3 months with a training squadron in Bromwich, before leaving for France in April 1918. Arriving on the battlefields of the Western Front, Second Lieutenant Roy Ebeling was attached to the Air Supply Depot at Boulogne. An important military supply depot throughout the war, Boulogne was one of the 2 hubs to receive the bulk of supplies from England for the Royal Flying Corps, and Ebeling was likely to have been working in his capacity as a mechanical expert at the least part of the time, whilst gaining hours of experience in flying. In July 1918, Ebeling was transferred to No. 2 Squadron of the Australian Flying Corps, as it was working in preparation for the big offensive that was launched in Amiens on the 8th of August 1918. The pilots of the squadron flew reconnaissance sorties, as well as flights to supply troops on the ground and against enemy aircraft. On the 22nd of August 1918, Lieutenant Roy Ebeling went back to his old base at Boulogne, having been given permission to fly there to collect his mail. On his return, he was to pilot a new aircraft back to his squadron. On the evening of the 23rd of August, Lieutenant Roy Ebeling took off from Marquette Airport in Boulogne, conducting a climbing turn over the hangars as he left. However, as he reached the top of his climb, the engine of his aircraft seemed to stall, and Ebeling suddenly plunged to the ground. The officer commanding the aerodrome later reported there was no possible room for the pilot to have pulled out of the dive before the machine struck the ground. Almost immediately, a non-commissioned officer and a medical officer reached the wreckage of Ebeling's aircraft and extricated the badly wounded pilot. Lieutenant Ebeling was taken to Royal Air Force Hospital in Boulogne, but his condition was too serious. He died later that night. He was buried in Tillington British Cemetery on the northern outskirts of Boulogne. Roy Ebeling was regularly memorialised in Australian newspapers by his family and friends. Shortly after his death, employees at his father's engineering works at Yarraville inserted a notice into the newspaper that read, "One of Australia's noblest and best, a soldier, a man." He was 25 years old. Nearly 30 years after her husband's death, Muriel Ebeling worked as a president of the War Widows and Widowed Mothers Association of Victoria. She never remarried. Roy Ebeling's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Claude Roy Ebeling, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
Catapult party, shoulder, arms.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Catapult party, present, arms. Catapult party, shoulder, arms.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Catapult party, in words, turn. Catapult party, quick, march.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.